Hey everyone! What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Fusion Deck User in a different Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 431, The Last Dimension. The finals moved into the second stage of the revival bracket. Yes, every duelist here had already lost once, but each still brought a distinctive edge to the table, so the matches never dragged. After all, you almost never see duels this intense in everyday life. That said, with the second wave of play-ins underway, some of the busier people in attendance naturally had their eyes on matters they considered more important. For example, a certain man who'd been watching the entire tournament. Big brother, we've discovered a new dimension. Makoba Kaiba patched through to Seto Kaiba, then stepped aside so staff could begin the briefing. Kaiba stood in a tower lobby, facing a wall of glass and looking down on the grounds below. Yes, Seto Kaiba had been on site the whole time, watching the finals in person. He'd come as soon as he finished lighting a fire under Chaz Princeton. He'd known about the Dark World incursion earlier. To him, that was no crisis. If anything, it was preferable. How else are greenhouse-raised students supposed to become real duelists without being tempered? With no outside evil pressing in, they'd never learn to improve. If they can't even hold the line against a band of fiends, they're better off going home and living as strays. In truth, he'd been a little dissatisfied with how it all turned out. Students like Amaji Hikaru, Jaden Yuki, and Zane Truesdale were simply too strong, so far beyond the average that only a handful ever faced any real danger. It didn't matter. He wouldn't waste time observing students who couldn't seize an opportunity when it was handed to them. At least the Dark World incident made for a solid report card. In his mind, anyone who showed up and acted during the crisis would get extra credit where it counted. People forget, but Seto Kaiba is one of Duel Academy's founders. He usually left the daily running of each branch to its principal, but if he was physically present, he paid attention. Just like Hikaru asking after a Blue Eyes White Dragon, Kaiba knew about it soon enough. He wasn't in this dimension just to feed a card habit. Beyond Hikaru, Jaden, Zane, and a few others he'd already tagged, he'd also marked several promising new faces. Atticus Rhodes, Axel Brody, Jim Crocodile Cook, and Cyrus Truesdale all looked good. Cyrus was still a bit green, but he was the Kaiser's kid brother. There was talent there. Of the bunch, the one who surprised him most was Atticus. A pleasant surprise. The rest? Passable. They were Duel Academy students, after all, not duelists who had walked out of ordinary schools of their own will and fought against forces that defied explanation. Kaiba didn't care about most things, but he did want to see more duelists with soul. For now, though, it was time to hear about that new dimension. He already knew Makuba wasn't talking about a spirit world. Those discoveries popped up daily. If Makuba was calling him directly, then this had to be a human world. President, the dimension calls itself the Standard Dimension, the staffer began. Standard? Kaiba's brow creased. It's a peculiar one, the man continued, shuffling papers. They don't have our dimensional transit tech, but they seem aware it exists elsewhere, and they've got a protective system a bit like the XYZ dimensions. They also possess mature solid vision technology. Oh? Kaiba's interest lifted. Kaiba Corp had been targeting solid vision in its recent R&D, and here this so-called standard dimension was already fielding a refined version. Some of their people seem well-versed in other dimensions. They not only call their own world the standard dimension, but refer to us as the fusion dimension, and they know about the synchro dimension and the XYZ dimension as well. Ridiculous, Kaiba snorted. They themselves had taken to calling the others X and S, just labels, the same way the other two sometimes called them the F dimension. But naming a whole world after a summoning method? Unqualified. A dimension isn't defined by a single mechanic. Even the XYZ and Synchro worlds can perform fusion. If you're going to let cards stand for a dimension, then at least choose its most symbolic card, or some singular feature worthy of the name. If you absolutely had to label a whole world by cards, then ours should be the Egyptian god dimension, and the S dimension the turbo dual dimension, Seto Kaiba said dryly. If you're desperate for placeholders, try transit dimension or perpetual motion machine dimension. But XYZ and Synchro as world names? Idiotic. A true duelist should understand all possibilities. Furthermore, what about ritual summoning? They're even more standoffish than the S dimension, a staffer reported over Makuba's link. Communication is difficult. Ha! Then we take it slow. Same as before, once we've built enough rapport, then we inform the public. Yes, sir. Anything else? Any summoning method we haven't seen? No. Their dimension studies fusion, synchro, and XYZ concurrently. Then hybrid would fit better. Kaiba waved it off. Forget naming for now. We'll settle it when we open formal talks. Yes. The official story always said they had suddenly encountered another dimension, then began exchanges, then told the media. Reality was never that simple. Even Kaiba couldn't guarantee another human world was friendly. Likewise, the people of the standard dimension couldn't be sure the outsiders were friendly either. Inside a vast laboratory, a tall, expressionless young man adjusted his glasses. A long red scarf fluttered at his neck. His name was Declan Akaba. Everyone knew the profile: Leo Akaba's son, president of Leo Corporation, founder of LDS, the Standard Dimension's prodigy, ever preparing to resist his father's invasion. Declan's face was grim. He replayed his earlier exchange with the interdimensional visitors. A company he'd never heard of, Kaiba Corporation. His intel was thin. Aside from an experiment years ago that accidentally dumped him into the fusion dimension, he had almost never succeeded in crossing himself, so his knowledge was limited. He knew only that his father intended to launch the Arc-V project to subjugate all dimensions. This world, after all, had been discovered by humans from elsewhere. He was worried. Because he'd been to the fusion dimension, he knew what his own world lacked, something dangerous yet necessary: spirit power. Their solid vision was highly advanced, but compared to the supernatural might of spirits, solid vision was unwieldy and far less destructive. And although Leo Corp had pushed the populace to learn stronger techniques, synchro, fusion, XYZ, decades of immersion in those arts had left other worlds far ahead. Their cards were stronger, and so was their power. Even if Kaiba Corp wasn't a militaristic evil like his father's, how could different dimensions easily trust one another? As the one privy to his world's secret, he had to prepare. How about it, mortal? As he sank into thought, a figure rippled into view on the polished glass before him. A young mage with red twin tails, staff in hand. Had Amaji Hikaru been present, he would have recognized her at a glance: Gishki Emilia. Declan didn't know the card, but he knew, more clearly still, that what stood before him wasn't a mere card. It was something older, more elusive. A god. Emilia's voice held no emotion. She didn't seem to expect Declan Akaba to answer at all, only to wear a convenient shape while descending here to speak with him. Declan stayed quiet for a time. A little over half a month ago, this deity had abruptly appeared in the standard dimension. Their world seemed directly linked to another, and because cards related to her existed here, she had manifested outright. She approached Declan at once. She could grant power; in return, he would gather all kinds of power to help resurrect her. Her conditions were many, and Declan happened to be the kind of human who could adapt to every summoning method and every type of spirit power. So she had sought him out and chosen him as her priest. If he accepted, the deity would supply this dimension with cards saturated in spirit power. In exchange, he need only direct the duelists under him to collect diverse summoning energies for her. On paper, it was a good bargain. What their world lacked most was the power of spirits. And the drain she demanded, dual energy, would at worst tire a duelist, not endanger their life. Her influence was not a violent seizure but a slow pressure. Even so, Declan could feel she was no benevolent or gentle god. Agreeing would be to turn the humans of this world into her laborers, or worse, thralls, their power bled away without ever knowing. But if he refused, what other choice did he have? He pushed his glasses. The lenses flashed. "I can promote the cards you provide across our duel discs," he said at last, voice low. "And I'll make it clear that learning stronger duels will cost more energy and effort. A step back, no lies. If people chose to become workers with open eyes, if they understood that greater strength demands greater power and strain, then it was at least a cooperation on honest terms." The deity offered no reply. Her image unraveled from the glass. As she faded, 3 sets of cards, wrapped in alternating black and white light, floated down out of the void and arrived in this world. A Gem-Knight fusion deck. An X-Saber Synchro deck. A Constellar XYZ deck. One of each, He pushed his glasses again. White glinted along the rim. He said nothing. He still didn't know whether Yusho Sakaki had made it to the fusion dimension using the dimensional device, or why there had been no contact since. Chapter 432, Factor. 2 years earlier, anticipating that Declan Akaba might one day be forced to counter an invasion from beyond, the young executive asked his friend, the world-famous entertainment duelist Yusho Sakaki, to test a modified dimensional system and attempt to jump to another world. But 2 full years passed with no word from Yusho, as if he had vanished into thin air. If not for the life monitor still pinging on Yusho's person, Declan might have believed him dead. Even so, with over 2 years gone and no contact, Declan could no longer wait. Their standard dimension could no longer hide, people from other worlds had found it and were preparing to enter. Declan had to make new decisions. For now, the Dimensional Door project would have to be shelved. At the very least, he needed to ensure his people were no longer so passive. The citizens of this world had to change. In truth, Yusho Sakaki was neither missing nor dead. He had simply arrived in the wrong place. The XYZ dimension. With the parts he had scavenged, Yusho finally managed to erect another dimensional door. 2 years earlier, that first attempt had misfired and deposited him in the XYZ dimension. Unable to return, he became a teacher there, spreading his creed of entertainment dueling. A few months ago, Academia, Declan's father's fusion forces, attacked the XYZ world. Yusho stepped in to save several children, then followed the raiders' retreat, collecting components and inactive portals the fusion soldiers left behind, until he rebuilt a working gate. This time, with Academia's gear in hand, he could finally find a way out. He exhaled. So it had happened after all, Leo Akaba's invasion of other dimensions. He primed the machine and slid a card into its slot. Unlike Declan, who didn't know why Leo would wage such a campaign, Yusho knew some of the truth. In their youth, he and Declan had co-developed Solid Vision, a system that granted holograms mass, so that tasks tedious for humans could be handled by light made solid. Construction without strain. Terrain reshaped at a touch. Entire industrial chains completed by projections. A certain organization took notice. They invited the pair to explore Solid Vision's future. They wanted to use Solid Vision to pour limitless mass into a single card, to create a god card with infinite heft. To ensure the experiment's success, Leo put forth his own daughter, Rei Akaba, whose talent was extraordinary, as a test subject. But the plan failed. Not because the card or the tech fell short, rather, because there was a traitor among the researchers. Yusho, engrossed in Solid Vision and the art of entertainment dueling, never imagined his closest colleague would betray them in that moment. Declan Akaba. At the crucial instant, Declan moved to steal the god card that could change everything, so he could control the world and become its master. Rei Akaba, offered up as a volunteer, had been a decoy in a trap to monopolize the infinite card. The one stroke of fortune, the plot was discovered by the project's leader, and Declan failed, flung out of the world by the enormous energy the experiment released. Even so, the 2 volunteers who underwent the procedure, Rei Akaba and Zark, gained a peculiar power later called the Atom Factor. Later, why those 2 split, why they ended up in different dimensions, Declan Akaba didn't know. All he could do was find a duplicate afterward and adopt it. Bzzz. The familiar hum of teleportation filled the air as Yusho Sakaki landed, staff in hand, tipping his hat with a light touch. A city? On a giant outdoor screen, a duel was being broadcast. From the chatter around him, it was a wildly popular tournament here. After a few questions, he pieced it together. The GX tournament, Genius Times, Cross, Tournament, a contest to crown this world's most brilliant duelist? Oh. That sounded delightful. If it could make so many people smile, it had to be a fun show. On screen, two duelists clashed. The one on the left shackled the field with skill drain, backed by a swarm of goblin cards. Yusho took one look and found it thoroughly unentertaining. The opponent. Amazonas? From the girl piloting Amazonas, he could see it at once. She was pushing too hard, ignoring her body, dueling as if her life were on the line, pressing and pressing until she spooked her opponent. This was, as expected in another dimension, that wouldn't do at all. Yusho made a quiet decision. He needed to search for Declan Akaba in this world, and at the same time, he would spread his beloved entertainment dueling here, share the joy of the game. There had to be balance between work and rest. Battle Amazonas Empress, direct attack. Gloria thrust a finger at her opponent and roared. Anseal's traps were nasty and well placed. If the Amazonas deck hadn't carried its own powerful traps, she might have lost already. When it ended, she felt wrung out. Days of overtraining that ignored her limits, piled atop a desperate duel, left her mind hazy. But she wouldn't show it. A victor's smile settled on her face. She straightened, threw a confident fist toward the waiting area, and, holding herself together, walked straight off the stage. Down below, Grace rushed in to steady her, calling her name, worry plain in her voice. It's nothing, Grace. A duel like that is no problem. Grace looked stricken. How much pain her sister could bear, how could a twin not know? Gloria was a bit hardier than she was, but not by much. And yet, as her sister, Grace knew that if Gloria's obsession and resolve couldn't be released in duels, she herself would never be able to let it go. So she squared her shoulders, gathered up her exhausted sister, and hurried them back to the dorm to rest. Night fell. In a drowse, Grace reached out to hug the warm shape beside her, only to feel the wrong kind of softness. She jolted awake and stared. It wasn't her sister at all, but a huge body pillow. She sprang up, threw on her clothes, bolted out the door, and ran to find Gloria. At the training hall, sure enough, there was Gloria, still drilling, still pushing, late into the night. For the first time, Grace felt a hot spark of anger at her sister. She started forward, and then froze, hands flying to her mouth, eyes wide with surprise. Under the moon, a boy in a blue captain's coat stepped onto the road. The breeze lifted his hem as if he had just walked out of the moonlight itself. Gloria froze. Amaji Hikaru. She was stunned. You should stop entering the tournament. Ha, what are you saying? Are you afraid of me? Gloria swiped the sweat from her chin, forced herself upright, and faced him. Hikaru swept out his right hand. A vein of violet lightning seemed to crackle beneath the moon. If you really just want to duel me, you can find me anytime. Why risk your life in this tournament? As if struck, Gloria's breath caught. She said nothing. No, if that's truly what you want, then let's do it now. Now. The twins both felt their hearts jolt at the same instant. We're friends, Hikaru said. You can duel me whenever you like. If you want it that badly, I'll duel you now. He slipped his dual disc onto his left arm with an easy motion. Gloria tipped her chin up. She glanced at Hikaru a few times, then lowered her gaze. She couldn't have named the feeling even if she'd tried. She only knew her heartbeat thundered whenever she looked at him. Her blood boiled. Her face lit with excitement. Good, if it means I get to see more and more novel fusions even sooner. Duel. Duel. Gloria, LP, 4000. Amaji Hikaru, LP, 4000. Chapter 433, Staying in Place. Finally, I get to duel Amaji Hikaru again. Gloria drew, excitement flashing in her eyes. The first time she'd faced Hikaru, she'd seen Scatter Fusion, a Gemknight spell that fusion summons right from the extra deck using materials out of nowhere. Beneath those brilliant gemlights she'd felt a kind of duel she'd never known. She and Grace were tag duel prodigies, not just because they were twins, but because they could fuse their plays into something greater than the sum of two hands. Even so, in an official tag match they'd lost to Hikaru and Chaz, and, at the end, watched Scatter Fusion rewrite everything she thought she knew. They'd joined the fusion army to chase duels that could fill the emptiness and kill the boredom. And then they'd seen something genuinely new. Because of that, they'd started trying new possibilities, together. Grace stepped closer. Gloria slid her a sideways glance and smiled, confident. Don't worry, Grace. After this duel, I'll rest. Then, big sis, do your best. Ah, Gloria lifted her card. My turn. Droll, she checked her hand, and a smile teased her lips. Normal summon Amazonas Princess. A silver-haired girl with a high-side ponytail swept onto the field. Amazonas Princess, level 3, Earth Warrior 900 def. While on the field or in the GY, this card's name becomes Amazonas Queen. If this card is normal or special summoned, add one Amazonas spell/trap from your deck to your hand. A silver glint leapt from the deck. Gloria flicked a lock of golden hair and caught the card in the moonlight. I add Amazonas Secret Arts to my hand. She flashed the card toward Hikaru. Well, you see it, right? The fusing from the extra deck you showed me back then, and the Amazonas fusion spell you insisted I pack, I've mastered both. Hikaru dipped his chin. Acknowledged. Then, spell card, Amazonas Secret Arts. Fusion summon one Amazonas fusion monster using monsters from my hand or field. Fusion summon Amazonas Empress. The petite princess grew in a rush, frame lengthening, lines hardening from trim to power, youth ripening into strength. Amazonas Empress, level 8 Earth Warrior, 2800 ATK/2400 def. I set one card. Turn end. Hikaru said nothing. He looked down at his hand, then back up at Gloria. Her brow knit. What is it, Hikaru? Gloria, do you know the mistake you've been making lately? Me? A mistake? She planted a hand on her hip and waved off the idea, still refusing to show fatigue. Don't tell me it's that metaphysics you spouted when I lost to Chaz. Fine, I underestimated him. He's an excellent duelist. But that has nothing to do with this duel. Is that so? Hikaru didn't press. He simply drew. Now. I activate my set card, Continuous Trap, Amazonas Hall. Gloria flipped it at once. While this card remains on the field, each time you special summon a monster, I gain LP equal to that monster's ATK. Nice, textbook opener, Grace said, eyes bright. With Amazonas Empress establishing board presence and Amazonas Hall threatening to balloon her life points every time Hikaru special summoned, it looked like a soft lock against a duelist whose deck lived on special summons. For some reason, the moment Gloria flipped that card, a figure with long green hair shimmered into being beside Amaji Hikaru. Is that Winda? The apparition, El Shaddol Winda, swept an odd glance over the field, then peered down at the cards in Hikaru's hand with a mischievous little smile, as if settling in to enjoy the show. What's going on? From the sidelines, Grace frowned, puzzled. Then, I pay 1,000 life points to activate the quick play spell, Instant Fusion. Ah, Instant Fusion. Grace's earlier surprise melted to relief. Instant Fusion can special summon a level 5 or lower fusion straight from the extra deck, no materials required. Which meant Hikaru only needed to bring out that card. Hikaru LP, 4,000-3,000. Fusion summon, 1,000 eyes restrict. Hikaru's tone was calm now, much lighter than when the duel began. He slid 1,000 eyes restrict onto the field. A flicker of irritation crossed Gloria's face. This was the worst. Because 1,000 eyes restrict has 0 ATK. Thousand Eyes Restrict, Level 1 Dark Spellcaster 0 ATK/0 Def. I activate Thousand Eyes Restrict, absorb Amazonas Empress. A purple corona flared. Amazonas Empress dissolved into light and was drawn into the evil idol's thousand eyes. But Hikaru wasn't finished. Next, continuous spell, Brilliant Fusion. Ugh. Grace winced. Brilliant Fusion lets you fusion summon a Gem Knight directly from the deck. Its ATK/def becomes 0 when it hits the field. In other words, Amazonas Hall still wouldn't trigger off the special summon. 0 ATK means 0 LP gained. I send Gem Knight Emerald and Gem Knight Yellow Amber from my deck to the GY to fusion summon. Light Sparked, a White Knight of Crystal Brilliance strode forth, Hikaru's signature Gem Knight. Gem Knight Prism Aura, Level 7 Earth Thunder Fusion, 1400 Def. Discard Gem Knight Fusion to activate Prism Aura, destroy Amazonas Hall. Prism Aura leveled its gleaming spear. A lance of golden light punched through the continuous trap, shattering it into fragments. Then I used Gem Knight Fusion in the GY, banish Gem Knight Emerald to add it back to my hand. I set one card. Turn end. Oof, my turn. Before that, Hikaru's voice cut cleanly across Gloria's draw, thrumming with a strange force that made both sisters look up at once. Gloria, haven't you noticed yet? Noticed what? Gloria asked, baffled. Beside her, Grace frowned, murmuring to herself. Notice what? Haven't you realized, Gloria, this duel, from start to finish, is exactly the same as our tag duel back then? Ah! Both sisters' eyes flew wide at the same moment. In an instant they remembered, back when they faced Amagi Hikaru and Chaz Princeton, Gloria's opening turn, and then Hikaru's reply, had been almost identical to these two turns now. The cards were different, but the interaction, the flow, was nearly the same. Gloria's hands froze mid-motion. She stood there, rooted, her body propped up this whole time by sheer conviction, suddenly wavering as her focus slipped. She staggered a step to the side, caught herself, then shook her head hard. How can this be, she asked herself. Hikaru let out a soft sigh. Gloria, don't you see? Nothing has changed from back then, you're still standing in place. Rumble. Under the moonlight, it was as if thunder cracked open the sky, the shock rolling straight through the sisters' hearts. Chapter 434, Admiration. I haven't improved? After a long silence, Gloria muttered the words under her breath. This was impossible. Half a year ago, she needed 3 cards in fusion to bring out Amazonas Empress. Now she could do it off Amazonas Princess alone, 1 whole card saved. And this turn, she'd even used Amazonas Secret Arts to fuse straight from her extra deck, something Amagi Hikaru had done back then that she could only watch in awe. Right, she'd learned to use extra deck lines, the very technique Hikaru had mastered back then. How could she be standing still? But, given her pride, she couldn't say any of that. She would never throw those words back just to refute him. Gloria, we teamed up once, he said gently, lifting a hand as though intoning a vow. You're nothing like the worst of the fusion army in my mind, so I'm glad to be your friend. Fuse with all who can be fused, that's my fusion. Even with core fusion army members, if they haven't truly done evil, if they aren't beyond change, then I can choose to fuse with them. Gloria, maybe I didn't feel it as clearly in a tag duel, he went on, but after seeing you lose to Chaz and watching your revival matches, I'm sure, you're simply not suited to singles. And N. She tried so hard to change, but his words hit the one point she couldn't deny, and the very reason she had been pushing herself so mercilessly. Gloria had slowly realized it herself. Without Grace, her duels never felt smooth. As tag specialists, their solo showings were ordinary. Some duelists who barely troubled Hikaru would still give Gloria fits. She had no doubt, if she faced Jim, she'd be swept off the field in a blink. Since our duel, I know you've been trying to reach out, even mixing with students from the fusion department, Hikaru said, tapping his forehead with 2 fingers. But at the Amazonas camp, you still shut the rest out, didn't you? Grace bit her lower lip. He was right again. She herself was fine, but her sister had only mirrored Hikaru's fusion, Hikaru's way of dueling. Gloria had been imitating the idea, not living it. So what are you really thinking? Even Hikaru couldn't see that yet. He could only infer from the surface. Without a duel, he couldn't look into a heart. Damn it, my turn. Flustered at having her thoughts laid bare, a hot flush rose in Gloria's cheeks. Maybe the overtraining had kicked her body into a fever, her skin burned. Thinking about it now, it must be true. If she really just wanted to duel Hikaru, wouldn't it be better to just go find him? There was always time to seek him out, no excuses, no opportunities needed. Gloria drew and glanced at the card. TCH Amazonas Archer. She skimmed the rest of her hand. In that case, I'll play this spell card, Card Destruction. Each player discards their entire hand, then draws the same number of cards they discarded. She pitched Amazonas Archer and the rest to the GY. Hikaru arched a brow, then calmly sent his own hand to the GY as well. Gloria drew 3 fresh cards. There. This is nothing like before. She still couldn't name the feeling twisting in her chest, but since Hikaru had called it out, she'd cut those crutches loose. All right. She snapped a new card down. If I control no monsters, or only Amazonas monsters, I can special summon this card from my hand. Amazonas Warchief. Ha! Long time no see, Amaji Hikaru. Did the Tyler sisters just straight up poach Warchief? Amazonas Warchief, Level 4 Earth a Warrior, 1900 ATK/1200 Def. When this card is normal or special summoned, set one Amazonas spell/trap or polymerization directly from your deck. I set polymerization. Then, I banish Amazonas Secret Arts from my GY and activate its effect. This turn, when I fusion summon an Amazonas monster, I can also use one Amazonas fusion monster in my extra deck as material. The fusion requirement is, one Amazonas fusion monster plus one Amazonas monster. Lion that rules all beasts, kneel before the Empress. I fuse the Amazonas Empress in my extra deck with Amazonas Warchief on the field. Fusion summon Amazonas Augusta. A figure even more imposing than the Empress landed in a whirl of scarlet cloak, great blade braced on her shoulder. Amazonas Augusta, Level 10 Eartha Warrior, 3200 ATK/2800 Def. There was no spirit writing that card, it was a gift from the Amazonas Empress to the Tyler sisters. Beautifully done, Sister Gloria, Grace said, palms cupping her cheeks. You just pulled what Scatter Fusion did. Amazonas Augusta, on Fusion Summon, special summon one Amazonas monster from the deck. Amazonas Scouts. A cluster of little warriors, some with short swords, others with tiny bows, took formation at Gloria's side. Amazonas Scouts, Level 2 Eartha Warrior, 500 ATK/1100 Def. Their ATK wasn't much, but Prismora's stats were 0-0 under Brilliant Fusion. 500 was more than enough. Battle Phase. Amazonas Scouts, attack Gem Knight Prismora. The dimmed Crystal Knight couldn't resist. With 0 strength left, a practice arrow was enough to shatter it. Then, direct attack with Amazonas Augusta. Gloria's eyes flashed. Trap card, Fragment Fusion, activate. Hikaru raised a hand. Banish fusion materials listed on a Gem Knight fusion from my GY, fusion summon that monster. I banish Gem Knight Sapphire and Gem Knight Prismora to fusion summon Gem Knight Aquamarine. Gem Knight Aquamarine. Level 6 Earth Aqua 1400 ATK/2600 Def. Gloria clicked her tongue at the sight of that familiar general, but it wasn't unexpected. She snapped to her vanguard, continue the battle, quick effect of Amazonas Scouts. Tribute it, this turn, my Amazonas monsters cannot be destroyed by battle or by card effects. Battle continues, Amazonas Augusta attacks Gem Knight Aquamarine. Steel flashed. The Queen of the Hunt cleaved through the Gemstone Knight. Even with a counter poised, Aquamarine vanished from the field beneath the sisters' iron discipline. Alright, with that, I set one more and end my turn. Hikaru rubbed his chin with thumb and forefinger. He thought a moment, then drew in silence. Card destruction earlier. Augusta now. Just playing card destruction and embracing the unknown already proved Gloria's courage. She wasn't someone who refused to face her flaws. The moment she realized a problem, she'd cut powerful lines like Amazonas Archer without a second thought. And she had delivered exactly what she'd claimed, extra deck fusion lines. From a capability standpoint, Gloria clearly hadn't stagnated. Whether she'd changed in other ways, that was harder to say. He hadn't come out here to play savior out of kindness. The Taylor sisters, after all, hadn't committed the worst sins of the fusion army in this timeline, and their relationship with Hikaru had genuinely thawed. Down the line, the fusion army's leftover messes, like the fusion department, would need them. Out of friendship and work, Hikaru would help them alone. Still, it was obvious, the sisters were different, and didn't yet know what they truly wanted. He glanced from his hand to his GY. First, fusion substitute in the GY, return Gemnite Aquamarine to the extra deck and draw 1. Then, Thunder Dragon fusion in the GY, banish it to add 1 Thunder monster from my deck. Hikaru tucked Thunder Dragon fusion into the pouch at his back, opened his deck, and searched. I add Thunder Dragon to hand. Now Thunder Dragon, discard it to add up to 2 Thunder Dragon from my deck. 2 more cards slid free, he took them neatly. Continuous spell, Domain of Flame Swords. Oh. Domain of Flame Swords. Gloria's face lit. Are you finally using Flame Swordsman, Hikaru? People like to say he only brought out Flame Swordsman when he was dead serious. It wasn't true, but plenty still believed it. At least for Gloria, seeing more of Hikaru's fusions was a thrill in itself. Hikaru frowned. Domain of Flame Swords, I send 1 Thunder Dragon from my hand to the GY, special summon, Flame Swordsman. Ha ha ha. Flame Swordsman, making a grand entrance. The swordsman laughed as he arrived, hands on his hips, flame-etched blade gleaming. Flame Swordsman, level 5 Fire Warrior 1800 ATK/1600 def. Normal summon Thunder Dragon. I tribute it, special summon, Thunder Dragon Colossus. A golden sphere flickered before Hikaru, then burst. From the light stepped a black thunderbeast, man-tall and bristling with crackling scales. Thunder Dragon Colossus, level 8 Dark Thunder 2600 ATK/2400 def. A fusion that transforms straight from a monster. Grace gasped. Gloria surged a step forward, fatigue forgotten. Her heart hammered. This was why Hikaru's duels never got old: single card fusions, deck fusions, extra deck fusions, GY fusions, direct transformations. His whole deck fused, and he himself kept fusing possibilities together. Even the fusion army, even the fusion department, so long as you didn't cross his bottom line, he'd still try to fuse with you. Back at the Amazonas camp, she'd once doubted him, suspected that his identity kept him from teaming with her. But after that tag duel, she understood. Hikaru was an absolute fusion duelist, curious, expectant, relentless. She wanted to see more dazzling fusions, more that made the world feel wider. Battle. Colossus, attack Amazonas Augusta. Domain of Flame Swords, reduce Flame Swordsman's ATK by 1000 and increase Thunder Dragon Colossus by 1000. Colossus lunged. Thunder Dragon Colossus ATK, 2600-3600. Domain pumps all your monsters, so even under mine you can still push past, but my hand's changed since card destruction. Gloria snapped her set card. Continuous Trap Amazonas Willpower. Target 1 Amazonas monster in your GY, special summon it in attack position. It can't change its battle position and must attack if able. If this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. If that monster leaves, destroy this card. A smile sparked across her face. I revive Amazonas Empress. The Empress's silhouette flickered back onto the field. Amazonas Empress, level 8 Eartha Warrior, 2800 ATK/2400 def. With Empress out, my other Amazonas monsters can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. And with Augusta, my other monsters can't be targeted by your card effects. Gloria swept her left hand like a blade. How about it? You won't be destroying my board or targeting it with Thousand Eyes Restrict anymore. 2 queens, 2 walls. The protections overlapped into a fortress. Hikaru didn't flinch. You special summoned and changed the number of monsters, battle replay. I'll continue the attack and change the target, attack Amazonas Empress. ZZZZZZZ crackling bolts raked the queen. Gloria LP, 4000 3200. Hikaru considered, then ended his turn. Good, now our LP are basically even. Gloria's smile sharpened. Hikaru frowned, just a touch. Hikaru, maybe you're right. Maybe I still haven't figured out what I want, and maybe I'm still stuck. But it doesn't matter. She clenched a fist, that fierce smile cutting through the night. I do know I want to duel you, and see more of your fusion summons. That one thing is enough. Heat rose under her palm as she pressed it to her chest. Draw a heartbeat later she pulled a card, and something bright flashed in her eyes. Good. Field spell Amazonas Arena. Creak creak jingle jingle. Chains surged up around the stage, weaving into a massive cage. When this card is activated, both players recover 600 LP. Gloria LP, 3200 3800. Hikaru LP, 3000 3600. Both sides recover? Tiara blinked behind Hikaru, hands tucked behind her back, a little surprised. Good, then let's take the most direct route, Amaji Hikaru. Gloria raised her right hand toward him. In the most primal, most brutal way. While this card is on the field, whenever either player's monster battles, the attacker can pay 100 LP to inflict 100 damage to the opponent. In other words, a cage match. Hikaru glanced left and right, a little helpless. Do all Amazonas duelists end up here? Can't figure it out? Then fight it out. Battle. Amazonas Empress attack your flame swordsman. I pay 100 LP. You take 100 damage. A chain whistled out from the iron lattice. Tiara lifted a hand to swat it aside, but Hikaru shook his head. Thunk. The chain pierced through him. A spike of pain, and with it, a surge of fighting spirit. Wild. Unending. A fervor that seemed ready to ignite him, and just as quickly burned away. Gloria LP, 3800 3700. Hikaru LP, 3600 3500. Domain of Flame Swords, reduce Flame Swordsman's ATK by 1000, Thunder Dragon Colossus gains 1000. Ha, no problem. With Amazonas Empress on the field, my Amazonas monsters gain piercing. The Empress dashed past her queenly counterpart, great blade sweeping down. Flame Swordsman shattered in a spray of sparks. Hikaru LP, 3500 2700. The heat swelled, coiling around the arena. Hikaru felt it, the core of Gloria Taylor's heart. Pure dueling. Pure struggle. Pure passion. That was what Gloria loved. Battle continues, Amazonas Empress attacks again. She thrust at Thunder Dragon Colossus. Sis, his monster's stronger. You'll take damage. Oh ho, Tiara murmured, understanding at last. Chains flew again, biting both duelists mid-swing. Gloria LP, 3700 3600. Hikaru LP, 2700 2600. Electric fury gathered around Colossus. Its body braced against the impact, lightning net flashing. Even with her evolved techniques, the Empress couldn't break through 3600 ATK, she fell back to one knee. Gloria LP, 3600 2800. Gloria staggered under the recoil, but didn't yield an inch. End turn. She clenched a fist, her knuckles cracked. Hikaru touched his chest, saying nothing. Across the way, Grace's expression turned almost serenely zealous. So that's it, mutual strikes, mutual blood, how interesting. But she wasn't Gloria. After a beat, she tapped her cheek with one finger, thinking aloud, even if Sis hasn't figured herself out yet, if we keep trading like this, and rely on our unbreakable Amazonas, the LP advantage will trend our way. Hikaru could keep bringing back Flame Swordsman, but that only meant he'd keep eating piercing damage. If they repeated this turn after turn, Big Sister would win. My turn. Draw. Hikaru looked at the card. So that's how it is. No helping Gloria find herself tonight, it seemed. But she had found a method, and that was enough. The fusion department's future cleanup would be far less messy with the Taylor sisters on board. Domain of Flame Swords, send Thunder Dragon from my hand to the GY. Special summon, Flame Swordsman. Ah, your trusty swordsman returns. The warrior sprinted in, blade roaring. Flame Swordsman, level 5 Fire Warrior 1800 ATK/1600 def. Then, equip spell, Salamandra Fusion. Fire erupted, wreathing the arena. Equip only to a Fire Warrior, it gains 700 ATK. And while this is equipped to a fusion I control, I send both to the GY to special summon, from my extra deck, Flame Swordsman or a fusion that mentions it. Equipped fusion. Gloria breathed. A fusion that evolves another fusion. The twins gasped in unison. Another new fusion line. Gloria stared, unblinking. I send Flame Swordsman and Salamandra Fusion to the GY. Swordsman of Flame, Salamander's Fong. Aggregate through fusion, take on a new form, and stand with me. My partner. My friend. My emblem. Ultimate Flame Swordsman. Boom! A pillar of fire tore into the sky. From within the blaze stepped a giant swordsman, reborn in searing mail and a greatsword of living flame. Ultimate Flame Swordsman, level 8 Fire Warrior, 2800 ATK. 2800 ATK. Gloria's eyes shone. She could barely stop herself from clapping. Its ATK matched Amazonas Empress, even its level and type were the same. This way, I won't take any piercing, Grace murmured, still tracking the board. Battle phase. Hikaru leveled his gaze at the Empress. Ultimate Flame Swordsman, attack Amazonas Empress. I pay 100 LP, and you take 100 damage. A chain lanced out from the steel lattice. Tiara lifted a hand to block it, but Hikaru shook his head. Thunk. The chain punched through him. Pain flashed, then a fierce, rising surge of fighting spirit. Wild. Boundless. A warmth that wanted to set him ablaze, and just as quickly, it faded. Hikaru LP, 2600-2500. Gloria LP, 2800-2700. Before Gloria could chase the warmth that had just washed over her, Ultimate Flame Swordsman was already in her face. The blazing greatsword came up, not goofy now, but steady and solemn. But Amazonas Empress has higher ATK. Ultimate Flame Swordsman's effect, at the start of the damage step, its ATK doubles until the end of the turn. Ultimate Flame Swordsman ATK, 2800-5600. The flame blade bit straight through the jungle Queen's Guard. Fire seared the Empress, then licked across Gloria, and even brushed Grace at her side. Gloria LP, 2700-300. Her knees buckled, Grace darted in to catch her. Continue. Thunder Dragon Colossus attacks, Hikaru swept an arm. Domain of Flame Swords. Reduce Ultimate Flame Swordsman by 1000 ATK, and Colossus gains 1000 ATK. And Amazonas Arena once more. I pay 100 LP, you take 100 damage. He didn't mind using Arena to make her feel things more directly. He never disliked passion, in this world, duels were never purely merciless. This time the chain pierced everyone again, Grace included. Startled, Gloria snapped her head up. She felt her sister's worry, their emotions resonating like a single chord. Hikaru LP, 2500-2400. Gloria LP. 300-200. Gloria pressed a hand to her chest, cheeks flushed. The long grind of overtraining, the fever that had never quite broken, maybe even something worse. And at last she understood. She understood why, after that first duel with Hikaru, she and Grace had tried to mix with students from the fusion department, tried to learn Hikaru's lines and ideas, tried extra deck fusion, even tried to imitate him. It was admiration. These sisters, born for tag duels, had always leaned only on each other, and never truly understood anyone else. Boredom had seeped into their old matches. Among their peers, almost no one could beat them in a normal tag. But Amaji Hikaru, his duels brought back the joy they'd felt the very first time they played. So even without fully understanding, they chased him. Instinctively. That's why Gloria started forcing herself into singles. Why Grace began watching Hikaru more closely. Why Gloria pushed so hard in this tournament, to meet him here again, wanting it and fearing it at once. Wanting to duel Hikaru. Fearing her weakness at singles. And now, everything was clear. Thunder Dragon Colossus, attack Amazonas Empress. Thunder crashed down, but there was no pain this time. Only the wonder, and the inclusiveness of fusion. And the applause for sisters who had just stepped onto a new path. Chapter 435, Gift. After the duel, Hikaru slid his dual disc off and walked toward the Tyler sisters. Grace was propping up her sister. Between the overtraining, the high-intensity matches, and fighting inside an arena that gnawed at your mind as much as your body, Gloria could hardly stand. Hikaru came over and offered a hand. "Ha, thanks." Gloria wasn't the coy type, she didn't turn down help. Once he'd made sure she was alright, Hikaru checked the time and started to take his leave. Wait. He had only taken a few steps when Gloria called after him. Whoosh. Hikaru turned, swept his right hand through the air, and plucked a card out of the moonlight as if it had flown straight to him. He looked down. Amazonas War Chief. He glanced back up. War Chief? It wasn't exactly proper to hand off a card that carried a resident spirit, was it? A shadowy figure, War Chief's silhouette, rose beside Gloria and said, "Take it, Amaji Hikaru. This is our wish." War Chief wasn't a high-tier spirit, but as the Amazon tribe's second strongest ritual warrior at this liminal moment, she could just barely maintain two bodies. She'd chosen the sisters not only because she felt their passion for the tribe, but because she expected things of them. She'd always been an Amazon instructor at heart. And tonight, Hikaru had woken Gloria up and moved Grace as well. In War Chief's eyes, that was the finest lesson. Giving up half her power was a price worth paying. The card's strength spoke for itself. Amazonas War Chief, the piece that sets from the deck when it hits the field, carried an extra perk. Her set effect dodged Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring entirely. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can set one Amazonas spell /trap, or polymerization, directly from your deck. For the rest of this turn, you cannot declare attacks with non-Amazonas monsters. That restriction didn't bother Hikaru. And as for Amazonas fusions, he already carried Amazonas Pet Liger. If he saw War Chief going first, all the better, his list even ran 3 copies of polymerization. Then, thanks, Gloria. Hikaru turned to go. Wait. Gloria stopped him again. Hikaru turned back, puzzled. Gloria drew a slow breath and managed a wry smile. Do you remember what we talked about last time? Last time. Hikaru's brow twitched. Beside him, Tiara spread her hands. Your agreement at the Amazonas camp, as long as you keep beating them, they'll help spread your fusion doctrine, remember? Her dueling still lagged behind, but Tiara's memory never missed. Hikaru remembered too. He just didn't think this was the moment to bring it up. After one duel, he could already tell that the Tyler sisters were no longer the kind of people who would hunt bored students from other schools and turn them into cards. There was no need to sour the air now. Do you know the Gladiator Beast dimension? Hikaru's eyes widened. Could it be? Gloria leaned into Grace. Grace fished a card from her pocket and flicked it forward. Hikaru snatched it out of the air. Gladiator Beast dimension. The homeland Gladiator Beast Undal had always longed to return to, and the one place where Hikaru hadn't been able to draw any new cards since then. This is the covert unit sector in the Gladiator Beast dimension, Gloria said quietly. Even during the raid on the X dimension, the Gladiator Beast Corps didn't deploy at first. Their stockpiles, their prep, their headcount, they're the most complete. She held his gaze. I know you've been trying to disrupt Professor Akaba's organization. This should help you, right? Hikaru nodded. Thanks, Gloria. This is a big deal for me. He took the emerald notebook from his belt, slid the card carefully between its pages, and closed it with a soft snap. He waved to the sisters, then finally turned to leave. Watching his back recede, Gloria seemed to deflate all at once, her strength draining away. Why didn't you call out to him again, sister? Grace asked in a small voice. Grace? Gloria flushed with embarrassment at her sister's bluntness. Grace didn't mind. She eased Gloria into a chair, twirled a strand of hair as she thought, and murmured, if we told him now we want to join the fusion department, he'd definitely welcome us. Then we could stay by his side and watch him duel whenever we want. That's what you were thinking too, right? Grace. Gloria shouldered her lightly. Truth was, the Gladiator Beast program was a prized asset inside the Fusion Army. Ever since the Gladiator Beast strike on Hikaru failed, every special unit that ran the theme had been slowly pulled back. After that, the only people at Duel Academy who were allowed to use Gladiator Beasts were the teachers loyal to Professor Akaba. The brass knew exactly how dangerous the archetype was. So the cards were tightly controlled, and because Gladiator Beast spirits were so easy to discipline, train, and weaponize, the army guarded that fighting force even more fiercely on the inside. Strictly speaking, if you could find the Gladiator Beast training grounds, the Fusion Army's real base wouldn't be far away. By handing Hikaru that kind of secret, the two sisters would be marked by the official units sooner or later, maybe even hunted. Compared to an outside enemy like Hikaru, traitors like them would face far worse hostility from within. Hikaru knew that, too. That's why, even after their duel, he hadn't brought it up himself. But since Gloria had given him this lead, he wouldn't waste the favor. Up to now, Hikaru had only one copy of Gladiator Beast Dimissionus in his collection, and Undul, the one-eyed gladiator, had never stopped worrying about his friends. Now that he finally had a point of entry, he might be able to track down more Gladiator Beast cards over there. Chapter 436, Top 8. The next day, Gloria withdrew from the revival round. Alexis, who was slated to face her, advanced by default. At a glance it looked like another stroke of Alexis's usual good fortune. But to Atticus, who was doing wheelchair races up and down the hospital corridor, it was the worst outcome. At this stage, anyone still in the bracket, unless they were an out-and-out pro like Aster Phoenix, was basically within a few years of Alexis's age. And each of them, whether from conviction or sheer stubborn grind, had something sharp that set them apart. Facing duelists like that, every extra match was experience you couldn't buy. Now they'd thrown one away. Worse, Atticus studied the bracket and didn't like what he saw. Alexis's next opponent was Jim. Alexis's game plan leaned on cyber angels that could recur from the GY and effects that seized control of the opponent's monsters. Jim's entire style, by contrast, preyed on graveyards, fossil fusion banishes from either GY, and even the Tyrant Neptune line he'd used against Hikaru played into that axis. It was a bad matchup. And sure enough, 2 turns in, Alexis was flagging. One more turn and the duel was a formality. Atticus sighed. What could he do? Chew out his kid sister. He'd been gone over a year, had her worrying that whole time. He couldn't be harsh with her, not like with Zane beside him, the one guy who always made him want to swing. You couldn't treat your best friend and your sister the same way. If Alexis ever put on a darkness mask and lost even a sliver of LP, he felt like he'd scoop right there. How could he bear it? Ugh. Troublesome, he muttered, and switched off the stream. Anyway, whoever crawled out of this revival round would have to face Hikaru sooner or later. He could wait and watch then. If anything great happened in the meantime, the VODs would still be there. Maybe it wasn't as fun as live, but you could still learn. He thumbed through White Dragon X, looking for something with a spark, when his eyes snagged on a strange post. At an amusement park in Tuno City, some uncle dressed like a magician was performing peculiar duels. Peculiar? He tapped the link. On screen, a handsome middle-aged man in a top hat and magician's tails waved to the crowd, wearing a dual disc Atticus had never seen before. The duel itself was nothing fancy: drop a high-level monster, crash, repeat. But the solid vision the entertainer was using actually took on mass and spilled out toward the children. When they reached for the illusions, they could feel them. Atticus sat up straight. A dark duelist? No. It didn't look like that. He kept watching. The man wasn't doing anything malicious. Between plays, he ran full circus, trapeze swings, flaming hoops, even a quick gallop. Fireworks and music riffed beneath it all, drawing squeals and laughter out of the kids. Combining duels with a circus act. Atticus's eyes lit. Genius. Kids go to amusement parks to see the show. Parents keep them from touching everything because a mess is one thing, getting hurt is another. But here was a duelist, someone with status, taking on all the danger in front of them and, with solid vision, letting the kids join in, even pet the strange little critters. Pure fun. Simple and clean. Kids didn't need a thesis. Give them a spectacle they could feel and they responded with their whole hearts. It was like a gamer seeing Full Dive for the first time. Of course you light up. Of course you want more. Oh, this is a good direction, Atticus murmured, and a pile of ideas started stacking up in his head like cartoon clouds. Alexis in a clown outfit, Alexis in an idol getup, Alexis in a sailor uniform, Alexis in a dark magician girl costume. Every look was adorable, and each one landed with surprising impact. Whoa, that's awesome. Atticus's eyes sparkled. He had to learn this. Entertainment dueling was just too much fun. After several days of revival round matches, the winners were all but set. Unsurprisingly, Jim made it through. Anyone who'd followed the bracket could feel the gap between the revival field and the top 8. With Atticus out, Jim was the obvious pick. If Atticus Rhodes had been healthy, people might have pinned their hopes on a Jim versus Atticus showdown. As things stood, everyone already knew where this was going. And with that, the top 8 began. The 8 were split into A and B blocks. Group A: Ches Princeton, Bastian Masawa, Jesse Anderson, and a Gravekeeper duelist. Group B: Zane Truesdale, the pro duelist Secret Viper, Amaji Hikaru, and Jim. The schedule alternated AB/AB to give everyone the best shot at scouting future opponents. Whether for verification, to reset momentum, or to prove the current top 8's caliber, the first match was Hikaru versus Jim, the very pairing that had closed the previous phase. Hikaru didn't have it easy, but there were no shocks. Last time, Jim's Tyrant Neptune line had caught him flat-footed. Without a convenient tribute body like Lyrilisk, Independent Nightingale, Jim didn't have many clean targets this time. Hikaru also stayed off Ancient Gear Golem for this one. Between the dense schedule and limited time to slot tech, Jim still put up a fight, but Hikaru took it. As a result, Hikaru added a new fossil fusion to his collection, Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. With that, Hikaru now had both Graveyard Effect fossils in hand. Ah, didn't think I'd drop it again, Jim laughed, rubbing the back of his head, not the least bit discouraged. Next term, the top students would be studying at the main campus. There'd be plenty of chances then. Honestly, after losing before, even clawing back through the revival round, Jim didn't feel like he could topple Hikaru overnight. That wasn't a lack of ambition, just a lack of time. For the top 8, Kaiba Corp didn't cordon off a separate lounge. The 8 could sit right up front until finals. So after his loss, Jim joined Hikaru on the rail to watch the next match, Ches Princeton vs Bastian Misawa. Chapter 437, Mathematics, Formulas, and Duels. The quarter-final stage sat high above the crowd. Standing on the platform, Bastian Misawa felt the thrum of excitement, a steady rise of heat in his chest. He glanced across at the other duelist and smiled. It's been a while since we really dueled, Chaz. Yeah. Feels like we only sparred that first term, Ches Princeton said, nodding as old memories flickered by. They hadn't faced each other often, at least not in a proper match. In the fusion department, they'd tossed decks at each other plenty of times across cafeteria tables. Bang, bang, bang. Fireworks blossomed overhead, and the two duelists' holograms flared across the arena screens. Duel Academy, Main Campus. Bastion Misawa, LP, 4000. Duel Academy, Main Campus, Chaz Princeton, LP, 4000. A wall of flame roared up behind them. No signature ace cut in rows from either side. Kaiba Corp had suggested a light and darkness dragon splash for Chaz, but he'd refused. As for Misawa, he'd rotated through so many builds, he'd even piloted Amazonas earlier, that production couldn't pick a single face card. My turn. Dark Contract. Misawa drew. I activate Pot of Greed to draw 2. Cards slid into his hand. Then Graceful Charity, I draw 3, then discard 2. He fanned his new grip, eyes glinting. Beautiful. Dragon's Mirror. He ran the math, I'd a continuous trap and a monster in hand, then chose. I discard Deuterion and Oxygeddon to the GY. Oh? Going for the bonding line? Chaz couldn't help but comment. You barely touched those in the prelims. Saving them for me? Exactly. Testing ends when I face you, Misawa said. Next, Monster Reborn, I revived Deuterion from the GY. A compact, sinewy dinosaur rose in a spiral of light. When Deuterion is normal or special summoned, I add a bonding spell / trap from my deck. I take bonding, DHO. He held the card up so Chaz and the cameras could see. Now I activate bonding, DHO. I shuffle Deuterion from my field, Hydrogeddon from my hand, and Oxygeddon in my GY into the deck, special summon. A tidal roar crushed the soundscape. A Leviathan-sized chemical chimera surged out, rings of water formulae spinning around its frame. Water Dragon Cluster. Water Dragon Cluster, Level 10 Water Sea Serpent, 2880k/2600 def. Chaz lip quirked. Summoning a 2880k boss on turn 1, was that the plan, he asked. A plan? No, Misawa said, calm and sure. Merely preparation. Chaz raised an eyebrow. When I went to the Amazonas encampment, I did a lot of thinking. I heard, Chaz said, smirking. You and A. Ahem. Not for this venue, Misawa cut in, then continued. The Fusion Army's incursion into the X dimension severed interdimensional dialogue. It will happen again. Even people struggle to understand one another, between dimensions, and between spirits and humans, differences in common sense lead to friction, conflict, even hatred. So I chose my path. I'll be the bridge across every future dimension. Chaz stared. That's not exactly a small goal. Between countries we don't even share languages, between dimensions we don't even share summoning methods. How do you pull that off alone? It's simple. There's one thing that never changes, no matter the world, the dimension, human or spirit. Misawa extended a hand, palm up. Mathematics. The word hit like a spark. Even kids in the stands blinked at the certainty in his voice. As long as there are formulas and numbers, there's a route to mutual understanding. To peace. I'll be the diplomatic envoy of mathematics. Ha! Amazing, Misawa. Chaz threw his head back and laughed. Then show me everything, because I'm the guy who surpasses past and future and becomes the strongest. If you don't go full power here, who's ever gonna trust you? Ha, of course I understand, I set 2 cards and end my turn. My turn. Dark Contract. Chaz drew, then snapped a card forward. In my draw phase, I activate the quick play spell Armed Dragon Flash. I special summon 1 Armed Dragon from my deck in defense position, Armed Dragon LV3. Then, in the standby phase, Armed Dragon LV3 sends itself to the GY to evolve. From my deck, Armed Dragon LV5. The small plated wyvern swelled with power, plating locking into a lean, battle-ready frame. Armed Dragon LV5, Level 5 Wind Dragon, 2480k. Quick play into LV3, then straight up to LV5. Whoa, an LV monster. Didn't think we'd see the classics. LVs weren't top tier, but they were legends. Seeing the line on stage sent a ripple through the crowd. You're going to use LV5 to blow away my 2800? Misawa asked mildly. But the classic LV5 has to send a monster from hand to the GY with ATK at least equal to its target. 2800 ATK, Chaz, even for you, that's not trivial. Unlucky for you, I've got it. Chaz lifted a card. Armed Dragon LV5, activate. I send Armed Dragon Thunder LV7 from my hand to the GY, destroy one face-up monster with ATK less than or equal to 2800. LV5's fist detonated with lightning. Misawa's 2800 behemoth shattered in a geyser of force. Misawa raised an arm against the shockwave, unruffled. When Armed Dragon Thunder LV7 is sent to the GY to activate a dragon's effect, Chaz continued, I add one Armed Dragon from my deck. I take Pile Armed Dragon and special summon it. I send Armed Dragon Thunder LV3 from my hand to the GY to fulfill its condition. A Drill Armed Dragon slammed down beside LV5, bellowing skyward. Pile Armed Dragon, Level 7 Winged Dragon, 2600 ATK. An Armed Dragon Thunder LV3, when it's sent to the GY to activate a dragon's effect, I draw one card. Chaz drew, glanced, and nodded. Not done yet. Pile Armed Dragon, I send Armed Dragon Thunder LV5 from my deck to the GY. Pile gains ATK equal to that level times 300, and for the rest of this turn only one of my monsters can attack. Then Thunder LV5, when sent to the GY to activate a dragon's effect, adds a level 5 or higher Wind Dragon. I take Armed Dragon LV10. Pile Armed Dragon ATK, 2600 4100. The audience buzzed. All off one line. That's Chaz. It's battle time, Misawa. If you can't even stop. Trap card, Waboku. Misawa's tone was gentle, almost apologetic. Peace, Chaz. Opening with overkill only scares off people who could be our friends. Chaz huffed a laugh. Fair enough. He slid 2 cards into his back row. Main phase 2, set 2. End turn. Pile Armed Dragon ATK, 4100 2600. My turn. Dark Contract. Misawa drew, and the corner of his mouth lifted. There it is, the second piece. At his shoulder, Tanya's spirit flickered and gave a small nod. Here I go, Chaz. Bring it on, Misawa. I activate the spell, Dragon's Mirror. Chapter 438, 0 to Infinity. Dragon's Mirror? Chaz glanced at Bastion's GY. He had a solid red on what Bastion had already milled and discarded. Don't tell me the Chemicritter build is a fusion shell. No, that doesn't track. Oh. You're making that, aren't you? That's right, Bastion said. What I'm summoning is precisely this card. The fusion materials are 2 Gemini monsters. Fusion Summon, Level 8, Super Alloy Beast Raptinus. A familiar Chrome Dragon, well known to the Fusion department, unfurled onto the field. So Bastion switched into Fusion too? A few Fusion kids who'd seen the card before whispered. The club had never forced members to run Fusion. Hikaru always said it was a chill lab for people who loved the style. No quotas, just vibes. Super Alloy Beast Raptinus, Level 8 Light Dragon, 2200 ATK/2200 DF. All Gemini monsters on the field are treated as effect monsters and gain their effects. ATK 2200. Chaz mused. That's not here to swing over anything. So we're playing for the effect, huh? Raptinus just flips Geminis on, right? Not impressive, on its face. Don't miss the details, Chaz, Bastion said, eyes bright. What you're about to see is the wonder of mathematics. Oh? Chaz's attention sharpened. What's he cooking? Even Jim leaned forward. The wonder of mathematics. Kaiba frowned. What kind of duel called itself that? It's that line, Hikaru said quietly, watching from the player gallery. So Bastion really practiced this. With this route, any dimension, any duelist, anyone who can count, gets it. People traded looks. If Hikaru could name Bastion's line off a single card, how scary was Hikaru's red? Flip my set, continuous trap, ultimate offering. As long as this card remains on the field, I can pay 500 LP to normal summon an additional monster. Here it comes, going for the Chemicritter/Gemini engine? Chaz wasn't surprised. Last year Bastion had shown this trap against Hikaru. Chaz had prepped counters, just in case. Normal summon Blazewing Butterfly. Flames sheeted across the arena. A butterfly with wings of living fire took flight. Blazewing Butterfly, level 4, a fire insect, 1500 ATK/1500 DF. Gemini. A Gemini. Chaz rubbed his chin and nodded. Seeing Geminis in Bastion's list was no shock. Alongside Chemicritter, other Gemini bodies made sense. Hikaru exhaled. Now we see whether Chaz has a real safety net. What? The nearby duelists exchanged glances. Was it really that explosive? Hikaru only laughed. Let him show it. It's more fun that way. I pay 500 LP with ultimate offering, Bastion said. I tribute Blazewing Butterfly to tribute summon Gigaplant. Bastion LP, 4,000-3,500. The flaming scales scattered, seeded the ground, and burst upward into a giant, thorn stalk. Gigaplant, level 6 Earth Insect, 2,400 ATK/1200 DEF. Gemini. With Raptinus, all my Geminis are treated as effect monsters and gain their effects. Gigaplant, once per turn, special summon one insect or plant from my hand or GY. Bastion held up one finger. That's one. Revive, Blazewing Butterfly. The fiery insect returned in a spiral of embers. Then I pay another 500 LP with ultimate offering, normal summon, Cannon Soldier. Bastion LP, 3,500-3,000. This time, a different monster took the stage. Ha! Isn't that one of those old Machine Fusion's materials? Chaz squinted at the board, a step behind on Bastion's through line. He didn't recognize every piece, and for a moment the intent eluded him. But duelists who did know those cards were already sweating, like a viper had coiled round their spines, the air turning ice cold. Effective Cannon Soldier. I tribute Gigaplant to inflict 500 damage. The giant plant blurred into a red-hot shell and slammed into Cannon Soldier's breach. That's two, Chaz. Flame belched, shaving away life. Chaz LP, 4,000-3,500. Chaz raised an arm against the blast, then stilled. No one wins on 500s alone. Bastion wasn't stopping here. There was a gear Chaz hadn't named yet. Blazewing Butterfly's Gemini effect tribute it, target one Gemini in my GY, except Blazewing Butterfly, and special summon it. A monster summoned by this effect is treated as normal summoned. Boom boom boom. Sparks scattered. Roots churned up through the platform. The scene from moments ago, replayed. Watch closely, Chaz. This is 3, Bastion Misoa's 3. Special summon come back, Gigaplant. Roar. Chaz's eyes widened. Wait. Gigaplant, now live under Superalloy Beast Raptinus, once per turn, special summon one insect/plant from hand or GY. Revive Blazewing Butterfly. A wave of realization rippled through the crowd. Wah! My God! Infinite! Infinite! Because neither Blazewing Butterfly nor Gigaplant has a once per turn, by name. Each time they hit the GY and come back, their usage refreshes. With Cannon Soldier on board, every time Gigaplant returns, Cannon Soldier contributed for another 500, and the pair can recreate themselves again and again. Loop it forever. No matter Chaz LP, it all falls to zero. Terrifying. Those old double monsters can do that? Is he the strongest duelist here? Chaz just hyped from his family's PR machine, he can't win this. Across the arena, furniture scraped. A monitor skidded. People struggled to believe what they were seeing. Bastion spread his hands, cards in his left, right index finger stabbing skyward. Do you see? This is my answer. Any dimension, human or spirit, anyone can follow the numbers. This number is infinity. From 1 to 3, from 3 to infinity. Infinite dimensions, infinite life, infinite dialogue, infinite peace. Ridiculous. Even Kaiba leaned closer to the glass. He'd thought these kids were lively enough. He'd underestimated them. None of the top 8 were simple. As he spoke, Cannon Soldier had already tributed Gigaplant again, another 500 to Chaz. Chaz LP, 3,500 3,000. Once more, Blazewings effect. I tribute it to revive a Gemini from the GY. Chaz braced his left arm against the lingering heat, then exhaled through his nose. Bang! Blazewing burst into cinders, and when the smoke cleared, no plant rose. Instead, 3 squat, goofy creatures in clashing primary colors popped into being, squabbling, jeering, and munching on whatever they'd found. "'Scuse us. Don't mind us. What are you looking at? I'm reading here. Hey, bros, this stuff's tasty. Ojamas." Bastion snapped his gaze to Chaz. That was close, Chaz admitted, flexing his fingers. A trap at his feet glowed to life. When you activated Blazewings effect, I chained Ojama Trio. Ojama Trio special summons 3 Ojama tokens to your opponent's field in defense position. They can't be tribute for a tribute summon. When they're destroyed, their controller takes 300 damage each. You said it yourself, Misawa, mathematics works in every dimension. Chaz raised his hand, splaying all 5 fingers. The monster zone caps at 5. To light your Geminis you need Super Alloy Beast Raptinus. To deal damage you need Cannon Soldier. When you tribute Blazewing as T to target Gigaplant. I chain Trio. Your zones are now 5 full, Raptinus, Cannon Soldier, and 3 tokens. Your target can't be summoned, so your loop breaks. Thunderous cheers detonated. Moments ago, Bastion's infinite line had blown minds. Veterans bowed their heads at the beauty of the Gemini engine, newbies gaped as if they'd seen real magic. Now that unbeatable sequence had met a clean, elegant counter. And yes, that, too, was mathematics. Even if Ojama tokens can't be tribute for a tribute summon, you can tribute them for your card effects. But at best you tribute all 5 monsters you control for Cannon Soldier, that's only 2,500 damage. Chaz wore a confident grin. So you can't win this turn. And with most of your resources spent, you're not winning on the next one either. Amazing. Chav. Of course. Chaz thrust a finger skyward. Because I am 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, Chaz Princeton. He flashed a teasing smile. That's a lot more than you. Ha ha ha. Bastion chuckled, then looked down at his hand. He still had lines. I activate the spell Magic Planter. I send a face-up continuous trap I control to the GY to draw 2 cards, I send Ultimate Offering. He drew and glanced at the new cards. Ultimate Offering, and Amazonas Swordswoman. He frowned. Chaz had Armed Dragon LV-10 in hand. If Bastion tried to wall up with bodies, next turn Chaz could line up LV-10 and wipe his monsters. In that case, leaving Super Alloy Beast Raptinus to keep his Gemini pieces live, padding LP now and forcing combat with Amazonas Swordswoman later, looked like the best route. If Chaz used LV5 just to pick off Raptinus, and didn't pump pile Armed Dragon, Bastion's trap could bring back a wall to soak the rest. If Chaz did pump pile, only 1 monster could attack this turn anyway, Bastion could still block. Alright. Cannon Soldier, effect, tribute your 3 Ojama tokens, then Cannon Soldier itself. That's 4 tributes times 500 is equal to 2,000 damage. Chaz LP, 3,000 1,000. I set 1 and end. Hold it. In your end phase, I flip my set card, Oja Match. Chaz back row flashed. I send Oja Magic from my hand to the GY, then I add Ojama Red and Armed Dragon from my deck to my hand. The card sent by Oja Match, Oja Magic, triggers in the GY. I add Ojama Green, Ojama Yellow, and Ojama Black from my deck to my hand. Yay! Big bro! We're here! Yay, big bro! Chaz's hand swelled with little gremlins. My turn. Dark Contract. He drew. I activate the continuous spell Ojama Pajama, I add Ojama Assimilation from my deck to my hand, then discard Ojama Yellow. I activate Ojama Assimilation. I reveal a Light Machine fusion that lists specific materials, XZ Tank Cannon. I banish Ojama Green to special summon from my deck the listed materials equal to the number banished. X Head Cannon and Z Metal Tank hit the field. Chaz smirked. Just like your Geminis, Misawa, a newer, stronger monster isn't always the right line. He swept a hand. I banish X Head Cannon and Z Metal Tank I control, come forth, XZ Tank Cannon. Treads locked under a blue chassis, the barrel word to life. XZ Tank Cannon, level 6 Light Machine, 2400 ATK. I flip my set, Soul Resurrection. Bastion's trap sprang up. Target one normal monster in my GY, special summon it in defense position. Return, Gigaplant. Def 1200, not enough, Chaz murmured, then nodded as the line clarified. In the seats, Jim tapped his chin. Compared to XYZ Dragon Cannon, which pops face-up cards, XZ Tank Cannon pitches to destroy a set spell/trap. Chaz isn't aiming for flexibility, he's forcing Bastion to fire off the trap now or lose it anyway. This is where it ends, Misawa. Chaz lifted the card he'd tutored earlier with his Armed Dragon effects. Armed Dragon LV10. ATK 3000. Bastion exhaled a rueful laugh. Heh, you were ready the whole time. Smart. Same to you. If I hadn't top-decked Ojama Trio when I did, you'd have looped me to 0. Chaz's voice was frank, almost admiring. Maybe you found your own path. But my goal is, the strongest duelist. Oh. Chaz broke an infinite loop on the fly and even set up Armed Dragon's famously finicky removal. Power like that makes anyone sit up and take notice. Even his mentor, Seto Kaiba. Oof. Kaiba watched from the tower window, eyes narrowed, a faint curve at the corner of his mouth. I activate Armed Dragon LV5's effect. By sending Armed Dragon LV10 from my hand to the GY, I destroy your Super Alloy Beast Raptinus. LV5's right arm howled into a cyclone. The wind sheared through Raptinus, scattering it into golden motes. Chaz raised his hand again. 1. 10. Fans who knew the bit shouted with him. 100. Even dual spirits joined the chant. 1,000. Viewers at home couldn't help but yell along. He was never just the Princeton Group's kid brother. He was chasing the absolute strongest. 10,000. Chaz punched the air. Chaz it up. Chaz. Chaz. Battle, Misawa. XZ Tank Cannon destroys your Gigaplant. Then, Armed Dragons, direct attack. Twin Armored Dragons tore in from opposite angles, fists like meteors. Bastion staggered back under the impact. Bastion Misawa, LP, 3000. Chapter 439, The Next Match. The duel had a victor, Chaz Princeton. Even so, the cheers for Bastion weren't far behind the applause for Chaz. This match had shown everyone that the youngest son of the Princeton Group was never hype without substance, his pride and arrogance came with real skill. But just as real were Bastion's ambition and his razor-sharp mind. Seto Kaiba watched Chaz and Bastion clasp hands, trade a quick hug and a shoulder pat, murmuring sorry and good luck, without a flicker of expression. He didn't dislike his pupils having something as trivial as friendship. A diplomat, is it? Interesting. He picked up a file at hand, Bastion's old application to visit the XYZ dimension. The raid by Academia's fusion forces had killed the plan at the time, but the paperwork lingered at Duel Academy. Recently, acting Chancellor Growler had dug it out between crises and forwarded it to Kaiba Corp. Before the quarterfinals began, once Bastion made the top 8, Kaiba Corp's staff put the file on Kaiba's desk. Kaiba didn't waste words. He set the application back on the table, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Clearly, Bastion would be hearing from Kaiba Corp soon, and the approval would be quick. In truth, Kaiba was already weighing Bastion for the imminent re-engagement with the XYZ dimension. Bastion wasn't his favorite student, but he was the right tool for this job. Amaji Hikaru, by contrast, absolutely could not go, not for several months, maybe not for a year. At most, a cameo at the next exchange meet. Of course, Kaiba wouldn't handle those logistics himself. His younger brother would. Kaiba's part was simply to look forward to more excellent duelists. Amazing, math god. I thought after all that closed-door training you'd be living in a two-card love story, Hikaru called as the two returned to the lounge, hand up in greeting, teasing Bastion. Ha! I was saving it for you. Didn't expect to run into Chaz halfway and lose, Bastion said, cheerful as ever. Scary stuff, though, ha ha ha. Hikaru could admit it. If you saw that combo cold, with zero prep, breaking it on the fly was hard. But if you knew it was coming, there were angles. First, like Chaz had shown, you could jam the loop mid-resolution with the right trap, stuff that locks the monster zones, or answer the key piece on their turn. If Super Alloy Beast Raptinus is the engine keeping Geminis on, remove it and the gears stop. Hikaru could even aim to stick El Shad Doll Winda. With Winda's only one special summon per turn ceiling, the Blazewing Butterfly Gigaplant recursion can't climb. Second, there was the hard counterline, put a card on the field that inverts effect damage. With something like Prime Material Dragon, or even a timed Rainbow Life, inflict 500 damage becomes recover 500 LP. Bastion's infinite damage turns into infinite healing. So yes, Hikaru had multiple prep routes into that puzzle box. Only catch. The first time you meet it in the wild, you might have to pray to the top deck gods. Now that he knew the line was possible, it wasn't so scary with the right tech in hand. That's dueling. Having information and flying blind are two different games. Otherwise, no one would praise Sky Striker for how well it leverages scouting and resource mapping, and people wouldn't keep pitching their hand traps at the wrong time into unfamiliar decks and losing for it. Even Amaji Hikaru had once been run over by reptilians so badly he couldn't see straight. Who's next? Bastion asked, easygoing as ever. The next pairing? Hikaru glanced at Kaiser. Zane felt the look and smiled at the corner of his mouth. Ha! Hikaru, wait for me. I'll win here, and then I'll take an even better win off you. He'd reconciled his two sides, but Zane never pretended he respected every opponent. What he respected was the duel. TCH arrogant. The duelist piloting Venom snorted. Kid, don't think mastering XYZ summoning makes you a king. I had the world's top points before you even stepped into the pro circuit. He swept a look across the 8 remaining duelists, confidence radiating. I'm the one who wins. He shrugged his jacket off and strode for the stage without looking back. Hikaru and the others traded looks. Chaz rubbed the back of his head. Huh, why does that sound familiar? He'd said versions of that line himself, and he'd heard it from others lately, so he was a little sensitive. But he had to admit it. Which of the top 8 wasn't one in a million? Genius X was a tournament to crown the most gifted prodigy in the world. Only one would take the title, but losing didn't mean you were weak. Even the duelists who bowed out in round 1 had fought through the Nexus dimension and earned the recognition of at least 8 powerful duelists and dual spirits. Weak didn't make the cut. And the 8 who'd reached this point. Geniuses among geniuses. Even with Zane, the students watching couldn't guarantee he'd steamroll. He'd nearly dropped a set the last time he faced Atticus Rhodes. Maybe this one. Some minutes later, the worry evaporated. What? How? I destroyed Cyber Dragon Nova. Ah, naive. When Cyber Dragon Nova is sent to the GY by an opponent's card effect, I can special summon one Machine Fusion straight from my extra deck. The wreckage of Nova's frame sheared apart, a silvery white core flaring to life beneath. Special summon, Cyber End Dragon. A roar split the arena. Zane Truesdale won. At the rail, Hikaru clicked his tongue. Not surprised, exactly, but it was satisfying to watch. But at the same time, a surge of excitement rose within him. So his next opponent really was Zane. Chapter 440, White Dragon Arena. With Jesse's win, the top four were set. Block A, Ches Princeton and Jesse Anderson. Block B, Amagi Hikaru and Zane Truesdale. Hikaru vs Zane would go first, Ches vs Jesse would follow, the winners would meet for the title. 3 duels to decide everything. Kaiba Corp, naturally, cranked every dial to max, hyping the broadcast and unveiling a brand new arena. That meant the top 4 would get a 1 to 2 day breather while the promos blitzed. No one was happier about the pause than Funlo. When the Fusion Army hit the X Dimension, Funlo had doubled down on Hikaru as their spokesperson, triggering his GG campaign on schedule and splashing GG Easy Fusion Cup noodles everywhere. Their stock cratered for it. But as the GX, Genius X, tournament surged, the freefall reversed. Orders came in like a blizzard, the company looked ready to rock it. Even then, Funlo didn't go wild. They tracked Hikaru down to renegotiate and offer extra support, like they suddenly had money burning a hole in their pocket. For a convenience foods also ran, the spike was dizzying. Hikaru wasn't a business guy, but he kept a cool head. He told their rep to leave the contract alone. Honor the original terms, if they wanted to talk revisions, do it at renewal. That's how partnerships last. If Funlo had windfall cash, use it to build the company, not to flatter him and stunt their own growth. If they really wanted to help, he said, introduce him to a legendary duelist or two. He was hunting for the Claw of Hermos, but he didn't say that out loud. Instead, he admitted that while his string of legendary exhibition duels had been awkward at times, they'd been undeniably exhilarating. If possible, he wanted to keep dueling top-tier rivals to sharpen himself. Funlo didn't hesitate. The bigger Hikaru's name, the better GG would sell. And after the finals his fame would naturally taper until the next big event, unless they dropped mini documentaries of Hikaru versus legendary duelists every so often to spike interest. They agreed on the spot and even promised a warm intro to a legendary right after the tournament, once Duel Academy hit summer break. Business handled, Hikaru went back to the lab to rebuild his deck. He always changed cores by opponent. Different rivals demanded different lines, and this time he knew exactly what Zane was on. Cyber Dragon. And against Cyber Dragon, what was Hikaru's best tech? He grinned. He had it. Cyber Dragon. He tuned attribute counts, adjusted ratios, bumped a few key numbers, then someone knocked. Anseal. Yo, Hikaru. The moment Hikaru saw him, he knew why Anseal had come. Sure enough, Anseal wasn't empty-handed. He carried a square presentation box. Stepping into Hikaru's room, he took in the scatter of odd metal rigs and extraction gear, cited Hikaru's hobbies, and set the box down. As you can see, this is the card President Pegasus made for you. Hikaru lifted the lid. Foam cradled a single hard-cased card in the center. Keeper of Dragon Magic. Keeper of Dragon Magic, Level 4 Adarka Dragon 1800 ATK/1300 def. More striking than the stats was the art. It wasn't the dragon warrior with a trident silhouette Hikaru had pictured. The palette ran violet, front and center a masked, dragon-themed mage with a confident smile, a scaled gauntlet on his left arm, and a sphere of purple energy blooming in his right hand. Oh ho, he used you as the model? Tiara popped into view at Hikaru's shoulder, peering close and nodding. Not bad. Mask or no, anyone who knows you would recognize that grin. Mechanical or not, Tiara liked the design. Thank you so much, President Pegasus, Hikaru said, genuinely excited. Haha, Mr. Pegasus said, as long as you're happy. Anseal replied, then added, this one's a personal exclusive, other keeper of dragon magic prints use different art. Hikaru nodded again, satisfied. Good. At last, a truly one-of-a-kind card in this world, official, and his. Ah, and Mr. Pegasus left a message. Anseal cleared his throat and slipped into a pitch-perfect impression. Hikaru boy, keep dazzling us. I look forward to more of your spectacular duels, ignite the world's passion. Realizing what he'd just done, he rubbed his nose, mortified, like he wished the floor would swallow him. Ahem, anyway, good luck, Amagi. If you win, I get to brag I dueled you. 10, 20 years from now, maybe I'll be a legendary duelist too. Hikaru laughed. I'll be waiting, future legendary duelist Anseal. He slid the card into his deck. Even without building around it, a piece like this would always find value mid-game. 2 days passed. On the day Hikaru reported in, the sky over the Nexus dimmed. He looked up as a bright silver, dragon-shaped airship, a blue eyes in gleaming steel, glided in from the horizon. Not a balloon. A flying stadium bristling with gear, screens, and hard-light projectors. Wow! Hikaru had been warned, but seeing it in person was absurd. And the most absurd part, Seto Kaiba had built this as a duel arena. The hull screens boomed to life, Kaiba's face filling the world as he hit the notes, duelists of the world, then rattled off specs. First, it was tough. Second, it was stable. Third, it would chart a tour duel above the Nexus along routes mapped by Duel Academy. Wherever it flew, humans and duel spirits alike would look up and watch the finalists resolve. This was the last stage of the GX, Genius X tournament, the White Dragon Arena, where glory is hunted, and the strongest is decided. Ha! A duel that crosses the whole dimension. Zane Truesdale's mouth curled, battle light sparking in his eyes. That wraps up this part of What If Fusion Deck User in a Different Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released 1 day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.